إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي هدانا للإيمان والإسلام. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. This is a continuation of the last khutbah. Last khutbah we got a glimpse, although superficially, into the nature, the composite, or if I'm allowed to use the term, the complex nature of Adam. Or, for that matter, mankind. It's clear in Surah 6, verse 2, Surah 15, verses 28, 29, Surah 38, verses 71 and 72, Surah 32, verses 79, so that Allah began with the creation of man with the use of potter's clay. Roughly speaking I say, because this is not a Quranic term now, a mixture of water and inorganic material. Then, according to the Quran, Allah gave the clay a form, a shape. He fashioned this clay, this lump of clay, perfected it, and gave man hearts, senses, and a mind. In particular, this is Surah 32, verse 19. And then Allah breathed unto Adam something of his, Allah's spirit, from Allah's Ruh. In general, as the Quran succinctly states it, in Surah 40, verse 54, it is Allah Himself who designed and perfected man. So, from these Quranic verses, we can summarize by saying that man is composed of body and soul. The word for soul in Arabic is nafs. As you can see, the word nafs is close to the word breath. Man's body is physical, it's material. It belongs to the realm of matter, it belongs to the physical world. It's very interesting how in Surah 23, verses 12 to 15, Allah describes how He created man out of clay. And then He speaks now not of Adam, but of mankind, the formation of the species, or the coming of generation after generation, how the fertilized egg develops in the womb, and then how bones and flesh come to be. But then, in Surah 23, verse 15, Allah says, then you will die. soul, this material aspect of man, his flesh, his bone, will disintegrate. This is a matter of fact. We see that. We see bodies buried sometimes in war. We see them exposed, rotting and so on. That is his body which belongs to the world of matter. His soul, on the other hand, as it were, partakes of the divine spirit or breath of Allah. It is the highest part of his composite nature. And this breath of Allah belongs to Allah. It is his, but it is infused in our soul, and since it comes from Allah himself, it represents the highest and the most precious part of man's composite nature. As was mentioned last time, it is this breath of Allah, min ruhi fihi, from his breath. It is this breath of Allah in man which allows mankind to know Allah. As I mentioned before, Allah is so great. Nothing can understand Allah except Allah himself. But if we can know something about him, it's because he himself has given us this power to know him. As it were, if we know Allah, even how little we know Allah, it's because he himself has seen to it. He implanted in us this capacity to know him. Only Allah can know Allah. And if we can know him, this is a gift. We know him through our reason and through revelation. But that's finite up to a certain point. It is this breath of Allah in us which allow us to manifest or to exemplify in our individual and social life many of those things which Allah desires us to exemplify, like the virtues of holiness, of being truthful, of being sincere, even matters of courtesy and politeness, and the virtues of patience, love, compassion, and in the sacred use of our lives, and also in the protection of the lives of others. We conclude clearly that it is this breath of Allah infusing our soul that is held by us in trust, or rather, it's something that we ought to hold in trust. It is an amana in Arabic. We don't own it. It is with us as a loan. And therefore, anything that we have as a loan must be returned to its owner. But more than that, we will be asked, what did you do with that loan? How did you use this breath of Allah? This power to be good. You were given many things to be good. Did you use it for good? You are held, all of us are held accountable. And therefore, as I said, it's a loan under trust and can only, and ought to be used only in terms of Allah's commandments. I take it that this thing breathed into us, something from Allah's Spirit, is imperishable. It's a fact, as I've mentioned so many times, that when we die or are dead, our physical bodies revert to clay. Using the word clay in its most general sense. But don't ask me details regarding what happens to this breath of Allah in us. And Allah suggests himself in Surah 17:85, and this is capable of many interpretations and translations. Allah says that regarding the Ruh, or spirit, whether it means message, revelation, or the breath in us, or the capacity to know Allah, so on. He says, very little knowledge of that is given to man. And we know, as a matter of fact, that among the so-called social sciences, if at all you can call psychology social sciences, it is the least developed. Progress in psychology has only been accomplished about 100 years ago. It's a very, very embryonic science, if you can call it at all, a science. It's highly theoretical. And it's very interesting. Quran says so, suggests that these discussions about the Ruh is very little, is vouchsafed to man. So, I cannot say more on this. Anyhow, it's very clear in the Quran, and I need not mention any more of the verses, that all creation is purposive. When Allah creates something, it is for a certain purpose. We know some of this purpose in terms of our mind, which Allah has given us, or in terms of revelation. But in any case, even if we do not know why Allah does something, there must be a reason for it. And regarding our own creation, Allah Himself reveals to us that He created us to worship Him. Now let's be very careful about the word worship. It's a translation from the Arabic, and most people think of worship as salat. So they say, well, we make salat, so we worship Allah. No. Worship is a very poor translation. It's due to the limitations of the English language. Worship in Arabic is not confined to salat or fasting and so on, but worship involves everything that righteousness, taqwa, connotes. It means being also in the straight path, siratul mustaqim. It means doing everything that Allah requires us to do. And thus, last time, I emphasized that worship includes the duty to develop the capacities implanted in us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as connoted or implied by His breathing into us something of His Spirit. Again, this means, therefore, that if God has given us the capacity to be compassionate, it becomes a duty for us to become compassionate. If He has given us the capacity to be truthful, if He has taught us how to read, and given us the capacity to read, it becomes our duty to develop our intelligence, and becomes a duty for us to increase our knowledge. It becomes a duty for us to be pious and to use what powers we have, physical, intellectual, economic, political, etc., etc., to use all of these well. And if He's given us the capacity to love, it means it becomes a duty for us to love, but in the right sense, in accordance with the commandments of Allah. And life that He gives us must be held as an awesome trust. But having a body and physical life, as we all know, imply material elements to perpetuate or maintain life. Moreover, as long as our composite nature is the way it is, man needs the body to help develop the soul. You cannot read Quran 3 or 4 hours at a stretch if you have not eaten for 1 week. You have to eat. You have to take care of your body. And if it's freezing weather, how can you read the Quran? You need some heat and so on. In other words, what I'm trying to say, the body needs some comforts, or minimum, needs benefits in order to perpetuate its life and increase its knowledge. As long as this composite nature is the way it is, we need some material requirements in order to worship Allah. And A great deal of our knowledge comes from our senses, from sense experience. And indeed, it is, a lot of these virtues are related with our physiology. How can you be patient about pain unless you have a toothache and appreciate that's the meaning of pain? Love itself involves emotion, and this feeling of euphoria that people have when they think of their wives and their children, all of this requires a physiological way. What I mean in particular is that many of these qualities that we exemplify, like patience and so on, they are manifested in physical and material life. But for a temporary character. Surah 21, verse 8 says specifically, the bodies need food, but the bodies will ultimately die of pain. Now it becomes very clear to all of us why Allah, who owns everything, allows man the use of earth, or gives him power on earth to partake of its provisions. This is found in Surah 2, verse 29. And let me quote Surah 67, verse 15. Allah says, He, Allah, is the one who subdued the earth for you. Roam its corners and eat from its provisions. But now this is an important sentence that follows. Before him you will be ultimately gathered. It's very clear. The verse says, eat. Yes, the earth. Earth is given to you to take care of your bodies, to give you the material basis for developing your soul. But to him you shall return. It's very clear. Go ahead, eat, enjoy yourself on earth. But you have to answer on that score. So life becomes a very serious affair. Allah gives man power on earth. And power is one of the faculties of the soul. In Surah 7, verse 10, Allah says, we put you in control of the earth and establish for you provisions therein. These are so clear, we need not elaborate on them. And thus, number one, giving the earth to man to roam, allowing him to eat of its provisions, giving man power on earth, or God subduing the earth for the sake of man, or giving man the power to subdue earth, which is ultimately the same, and provided further that man is held accountable in how he utilizes such provisions. All of this is what is meant by saying that mankind is Khalif on earth. This is in Surah 2, verse 30, Surah 6, verse 166, Surah 35, verse 39, etc. and etc. The word Khalif, I'm not talking about Mustafa, means many things. It means to inherit, the verb I mean, from which the noun Khalif comes from. To inherit, to succeed, to serve as a deputy, to serve as a vicar, to serve as a vice-regent, and so on. But such a succession on earth, such an inheritance on earth, is not absolute. It is finite because man has to die. It is relative because only Allah is absolute. But the granting of this caliphate to man, giving him earth as an inheritance, is really a test. Allah says in Surah 10, verse 14, then we made you inherit the earth to see what you do. Unquote. The power of And Khalifa is delegated power. It is a power held in trust. It is a power to be exercised in terms of the one who delegated this power or who gave this power. In other words, the power of a Khalifa on earth, or the powers of mankind on earth, whether you call them successors or inheritors, it is never absolute power. So it is inheritance between God. If you inherit something from people, parents who die, then to that extent, you can say you own what you've inherited and you can dispose of this inheritance the way you want. But when you inherit, quote unquote, something from Allah, you cannot do anything you want with it. Because Allah is not dead, He's still alive. So you inherit it in a special sense. Unfortunately, it's an English word that we're using. You inherit something from Allah, but He's not dead, He's alive. And then you have to account to Him all the time how you are handling that inheritance. And I think this is the point, the place to remind all of us that regarding the temptation of Adam, which we have overworked in our discussion, the temptation of Adam was precisely the temptation of absolute and power that is unanswerable. And so now we can relate the temptation of Adam to man's so-called caliphate on earth. In Surah 33, verse 72 shows clearly how the abuse of such power, the abuse of the caliphate, is manifested. Man is shown he can be wrong, or unjust, or tyrannical, or exploitative, or plainly ignorant when he exercises the responsibility of Khalif, when he disregards Allah's revelation, or when he forgets Allah as the Lord, as the source of all power, and as the real or ultimate owner of all the heavens and earth. That Adam would be Khalif on earth was part of Allah's plan even before the disobedience of Adam. Surah 2, verse 30 is clear. Allah informs the angel that he is going to establish a Khalif on earth. He suggested in the Quran that the angels were somewhat apprehensive. They spoke, "What, Allah? You send a Khalif on earth who will shed blood?" And Allah says, "You do not know what I know." And so the angels have to go to land. Thus, in Surah 2, verse 31, Allah, that's the next verse, after Allah informs the angels that He will send a Khalif on earth, and the angels, very concerned for reasons of their own, that belongs to another khutbah, why the angels were upset. It seems they were upset. This is verse 30. In verse 31, the Quran reveals how Allah already started to prepare Adam, or mankind, for the Caliphate. How? By teaching Adam the names. This is the training. So far, all of this is Quranic. I have kept my interpretations to myself, but now, with your kindness and generosity, allow me to go into some interpretation. So I'm warning you, what I'm going to say now is an interpretation. The names mentioned before refer to the breath, He is the power to exemplify Allah's qualities on earth, but in a limited and relative manner. Allah knows, absolutely, we have the power to know, but finally. Allah is the powerful, He gave us the power to be powerful, but in a limited manner. And Allah is the holy, the Quddus, we are supposed to be pious and holy, but up to a limited manner. So, these names we are supposed to make manifest in this world, in the world of experience. And the angels, not having bodies, cannot have this value. When a man has a toothache, I don't know why I always think of toothache, maybe because I'm getting old and beginning to lose out my teeth. I always think of toothache. Anyhow, whatever pain you have in your body, when you take it, Allah, this is part of one's body, part of the human situation, but this much enough to go to sleep. So, but if you take that as part, suffering as part of the generation, the physiological aspect of man, but you're patient, you burn, you ask Allah to strengthen you. Now the angels cannot have that, huh? Angels don't have toothache, they don't have false speech or faith. Maybe that's the meaning why the angels do not know all the names. Right? The names are what? Manifestations of Allah, of qualities of Allah to be manifested on earth. Even after Adam, he was learning a few things from Allah. And as I tried to explain before, he forgot, huh? When he fell into the trap of Satan's temptation, Satan said, "Can I show you the tree of immortality and power that will never fade, a kingdom that will never perish, or absolute sovereignty?" Adam fell into the trap. He forgot. What did he forget? That only Allah is the source of all power. That only Allah is eternal. Only Allah is absolute. Only Allah is the king. He is the Malik al-Mulk. He forgot. But these are the names of Allah. Allah taught Adam these things. He forgot. But even he forgot. The plan to send him to earth was never abandoned. What the disobedience in the garden brought immediately was expulsion. But expulsion from the garden, maybe the training of Adam might not have been complete, but that's not important for us now because Allah Himself promised revelation. So Adam learned something in the garden, the names of Allah he learned, and on earth, Allah is now sending revelation. In other words, the instructions begun by Allah in the garden was to be continued by means of revelation on earth, provided now that man was willing to listen, or is willing to listen to such revelations, and provided man deserves such revelation. Because if you don't deserve such revelation, Allah seals your heart, or our heart. But in any case, man's stay on earth was to be temporary, for death was decreed for him. Allah said this to Adam, that this is so. In Surah 40, verse 67, it's clear. Allah says to us, you are created of dust for a predetermined time span. In Surah 2, verses 36-39 says, but those who reject the revelations, they will deserve hell. They will not be allowed to go to the garden. But those who follow these revelations from Allah on earth, they have nothing to fear. They have passed the test as what? As khulafa, as khalif on earth. So, as khalif on earth, if we keep ourselves righteous, we will deserve the garden. But only after a second creation. We will have new bodies. And to quote Ustaz Khalifa, new bodies that will be able to withstand the presence of Allah, but certainly a kind of body
that will enable us to survive or perpetuate ourselves permanently in the garden. I often believe, dear brothers and sisters, that Adam's original stay in the garden was a sort of training ground, a place wherein he would receive a lot of instructions from Allah and see something in the garden. But unfortunately, our great-great-great-grandfather, he failed in following every detail of Allah's warning, which is a terrible lesson for all of us. Maybe too, we can say there was something in the garden which Adam could have seen and learned, and to use as a model when he comes to earth as a viceroy. In other words, he will try to exemplify the qualities of Allah in this physical universe. I would like to think that the world of the garden, Jannah, this earth and hell, in some ways are, for want of a better term, that are correspondences to each other. There is an A in the garden which corresponds to an A on earth, which corresponds to an A in hell. Not in all cases, but in many cases. For example, there's a kind of drink in the garden. There's a drink on earth. There is also hot drink in hell. There are trees in the garden, in paradise. There are trees on this earth. There are also trees, like the tree of Zakkum in heaven. So this is what I mean by analogous universes or worlds. Maybe, forgive me if I'm speculating too much, the idea was to use the garden as a model and make life on earth approximate paradise, but up to certain limits. If this is strange what I'm saying, let's find out. If all mankind on earth now, if all of us were righteous, if all of us were Allah conscious, all the time conscious of Allah, in accordance with His commandments. Remember Allah standing, sitting, lying, so Ya ayyuhallazina amanu zkurullah zikran kathiran, all you who believe, all remember Allah. Keep remembering Him in every action. But let's assume this is happening. Everybody is conscious of Allah. Everything he does is in terms of what Allah wants him to do. Isn't this some form of